Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien delegates argue about humans like they were not even in the room. The council chamber stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. Massive screens showed star maps and trade routes while creatures from dozens of worlds talked in, voices that sounded like grinding metal or rushing water. Morrison had been Earth's main ambassador for 3 years now. Every month he came to this same chamber on Nexus Prime, and every month the same thing happened. The aliens would listen to human requests with the patience adults show to annoying children. Then they would smile with whatever they used for mouths and explain why humans were not ready for whatever they had asked for. Today's request was simple. Earth wanted mining rights in the Outer Rim territories where old asteroids held rare metals that could power human colonies for centuries. Morrison had spent weeks preparing charts and data that showed humans could extract the materials safely without harming any existing claims. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood at the center podium. His blue skin looked almost silver under the chamber lights, and when he spoke his voice boomed through translation devices. The proposal from Earth shows enthusiasm but lacks the wisdom that comes with age, he said. Mining rights in the Outer Rim require careful consideration of long-term consequences. Morrison kept his face blank, but his aide Amy Clark shifted in her seat beside him. This was the third time this year that Earth's mining request had been rejected. The Council always used the same words, about patience and wisdom and long-term thinking. Perhaps, in another 100 years when humanity has gained more experience, we can revisit this matter, continued the Chancellor. His words sparked approving sounds from the other delegates. The tall Krathari delegate waved one of his forearms in what Morrison had learned was their version of applause. The Silurian observers in the elevated gallery made clicking sounds with their mandibles. Morrison had heard that sound before during other human presentations. Amy had told him it meant amusement in their language. They thought human requests were funny. Morrison looked around the chamber at beings who had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. The Council represented 43 different species spread across thousands of worlds. Some walked on legs like humans, while others floated in anti-grav pods or slithered across the floor on dozens of tentacles. But they all shared one thing in common when it came to Earth. They thought humans were babies playing with adult toys. The Chancellor moved on to the next item, which was a trade dispute between the Velturian merchants and the Arcturian Mining Guild. Both species had been part of the Council. For over 2,000 years, their disagreement involved shipping routes through sectors that humans had never even been allowed to visit. Morrison listened as the Chancellor laid out a complex solution that involved dividing the disputed routes and creating new oversight committees. The whole process would take months to implement and would require constant monitoring by Council peacekeepers. But nobody questioned whether it was worth the effort, because both species were considered full members of galactic civilization. Amy leaned close to Morrison's ear and whispered, "Sir, they spend more time on their shipping dispute than they gave to our entire presentation." Her voice carried frustration that Morrison felt but could not show. As Earth's representative, he had to maintain diplomatic dignity, even when the Council treated human concerns like minor annoyances. The session continued for 2 more hours. Morrison watched as the Council approved expanded territorial rights for the Krathari, who wanted to build new industrial complexes in the Centauri region. He listened as they granted the Silurians access to restricted archaeological sites where ancient civilizations had left behind advanced technology. Every request from established Council species received serious consideration and usually approval. When the session finally ended, Morrison stood and approached the central podium. The Chancellor looked down at him with the expression of a teacher dealing with a slow student. "Ambassador Morrison, do you have final comments for today's session?" Morrison had prepared a standard diplomatic response thanking the Council for their time and expressing hope for future cooperation. But as he looked around at the faces of beings who had just spent hours proving they would never see humans as equals, he felt something shift inside him. The United Earth government thanks the Galactic Council for their guidance. Over these past 15 years, Morrison said, his voice carried clearly through the chamber translation systems. We have learned much about how galactic civilization operates and what our place in it was meant to be. Several delegates nodded approvingly at what they took to be proper human humility. The Chancellor's expression softened slightly, as if he was pleased that the humans were finally understanding their position. However, Morrison continued, Earth formally withdraws our application for expanded territorial rights in the Outer Rim. We also withdraw our request for technology sharing, agreements, and our petition for advanced Council membership status. The United Earth government wishes the Council continued success in their future endeavors. The chamber fell silent. Morrison could hear the hum of air recycling systems and the distant sound of spacecraft moving through the station's docking bays. The Chancellor stared at him as if the translation system had malfunctioned. Ambassador Morrison, the Chancellor said slowly, surely you do not mean to abandon diplomatic relations over a single setback. The Council values Earth's participation and looks forward to continued cooperation as humanity matures. Morrison gathered the data tablets that contained years of human research and proposals. Every chart and graph represented months of work by Earth's best scientists and engineers. All of it had been dismissed as the amateur efforts of a species that did not understand real science. Chancellor Vextar, Morrison said, using the alien's full ceremonial name, Earth appreciates the Council's patience with our immaturity. We have decided to continue our development independently until we reach the wisdom levels that galactic civilization requires. He turned toward the exit where Amy and the rest of the human delegation waited. As they walked toward the massive doors that led out of the chamber, Morrison could hear confused murmuring from the alien delegates. Some of them were asking their aides what had just happened, while others seemed to think this was another example of human emotional instability. Outside the chamber, Amy caught up with Morrison as he headed toward the transport tubes that would take them back to their ship. Sir, what just happened in there? She asked. Are we really walking away from 15 years of diplomatic work? Morrison stopped at the security checkpoint where Nexus Prime guards scanned them for weapons and contraband. The aliens treated humans like potential threats even while dismissing them as harmless children. Amy, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop playing a game where the rules are designed to make you lose. He activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message that would reach Earth in less than an hour through the quantum relay network. The message contained only 3 words, but they would set in motion the largest operation in human history. Protocol 7 authorized. 6 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Council chamber, and the galaxy was starting to notice empty spaces where humans used to be. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Harper stood in the command center that coordinated the largest movement of people and equipment in human history. Hundreds of screens showed cargo ships lifting off from dozens of worlds, while transport vessels carried millions of humans back toward home space. The operation had a simple name that did not reveal its true scope. Protocol 7 looked like a standard diplomatic withdrawal to anyone watching from outside. Human embassies closed their doors and recalled their staff. Trade missions packed their equipment and canceled their contracts. Research stations powered down their laboratories and transmitted their final reports. But Admiral Harper knew the truth. Protocol 7 was not just about leaving Council space. It was about erasing every trace of human technological advancement that the aliens had ignored or dismissed. Every piece of equipment that humans had built better than Council standards was being destroyed or taken home. Every innovation that the Council had called primitive was disappearing forever. Captain Ben Rodriguez commanded the cargo ship New Horizon as it approached the human research station on Kepler 442b. The planet orbited a red dwarf, star in what the Council considered worthless territory. But human scientists had discovered that the planet's unique magnetic field could power energy collectors that produced 3 times more electricity than standard galactic generators. Rodriguez watched through the view screen as his crew worked around the station's exterior. They moved with practiced efficiency born from months of similar operations. Every piece of valuable equipment went into the cargo holds while everything else got fed into the ship's matter recyclers. When they finished, the station would look like it had been abandoned for years instead of days. Chief Engineer Carla Stone floated next to Rodriguez in the zero-gravity section near the cargo bays. She held a data tablet that listed everything they were removing from Kepler 442b. The quantum communication array alone took our people 2 years to build, she said. The Council species still use hyperspace radio that takes weeks to send messages between systems. Rodriguez nodded as he watched the massive array being carefully disassembled. The Council had refused to examine human communication technology because they assumed it was based on principles they already knew. Now the technology was going home to Earth where it would help build something the aliens could never imagine. The evacuation was not limited to research stations. On the mining world of Titan 7, Director Nathan Pierce oversaw the destruction of tunnels that had produced rare metals for galactic markets. His teams used controlled explosions to collapse mine shafts that had taken years to excavate. The rare elements they had extracted were already on their way to human space aboard automated cargo drones. Pierce stood on a hillside watching as his crews prepared the final demolition charges. Foreman Kenny Davis approached with a grim expression. 17 years of work, Davis said as explosions echoed across the valley. All those tunnels and processing facilities just gone. Not gone, Pierce replied. Relocated. He pointed to the convoy of vehicles carrying the last of their portable equipment toward the spaceport. Everything we learned here comes with us. The aliens can have their empty holes in the ground. The most complex evacuation was happening at research facilities where humans had been working alongside Council species. Dr. Helen Grant ran the xenobiology laboratory on Centauri Station where she had spent 8 years studying alien diseases and developing treatments that worked across multiple species. Her research had saved thousands of lives, but the Council Medical Board had rejected her request to share the treatments with other laboratories. Grant supervised the removal of equipment that represented breakthroughs in biological science, the protein synthesizers that could create custom medicines for any known species, the genetic sequencers that could map alien DNA in hours instead of months, the tissue regenerators that could heal injuries the Council considered permanent disabilities. Her research assistant, Dr. Paula Kim, helped pack the laboratory's most sensitive instruments. The Council Medical Board said our work was interesting but not ready for widespread application, Kim said. They wanted us to spend another decade proving what we already knew worked. Grant sealed the last container of research samples that included genetic material from 47 different species. They had their chance to benefit from our work, she said. Now they can figure out how to treat their diseases without our help. The largest single operation was the evacuation of Proxima Gateway, the massive space station that served as the primary trade hub between human space and the galactic market. Trade Administrator Carl Watson had built the station into one of the most efficient commercial centers in known space. Ships could dock, transfer cargo, and depart in half the time required at Council-run facilities. Watson walked through the station's main commercial district as human merchants closed their shops and loaded their inventory onto transport ships. The alien traders who rented space at Proxima Gateway seemed confused by the sudden exodus. Most of them assumed this was a temporary dispute that would resolve itself within a few weeks. A Velturian merchant named Kazuth approached Watson near the Central Market Plaza. The insect-like alien clicked his mandibles in what passed for friendly conversation among his species. Administrator Watson, surely this closure is temporary, Kazuth said through his translator device. The profits here are too good for humans to abandon permanently. Watson looked around at the bustling station that would be empty within days. Human efficiency had made Proxima Gateway the most profitable trade hub in 3 sectors. Ships came here because they could conduct business faster and cheaper than anywhere else in Council space. The human merchants are relocating their operations, Watson told the alien. You might want to consider alternative arrangements for your cargo transfers. Kazuth's antennae twitched in what Watson recognized as confusion. But where will we find facilities of this quality? The merchant asked. The Council stations are slow and expensive compared to human operations. Watson activated his personal communicator and began the final shutdown sequence for the station's main systems. That sounds like a problem for the Council to solve, he said. On Earth, President Alex Morgan received hourly reports on the evacuation progress. The scale of the operation impressed even him. Humans were withdrawing from over 200 worlds simultaneously, while maintaining perfect operational security. The Council species knew something was happening, but they had no idea how comprehensive the human departure really was. Defense Secretary Janet Phillips brought Morgan the latest intelligence from Council space. Their trade networks are already showing strain, she reported. Shipping costs have increased 40% in the EU, sectors where we used to operate, and some supply chains are failing completely. Morgan studied the economic data that showed the ripple effects of human withdrawal, spreading across galactic commerce. How long before they realize this is permanent, he asked. Phillips consulted her tablet where analysis teams had been modeling council reactions. Intelligence estimates 6 to 12 months before they understand the full scope of what we have done. By then, it will be too late for them to adapt their systems to function without us. The last transport ships began departing from the outer edges of Council space as Protocol 7 entered its final phase. Humans who had spent decades building lives on alien worlds packed their belongings and said goodbye to places they had called home. But they were not just running away from Council condescension. They were going home to build something better with the knowledge and resources they had gained during their years in galactic civilization. As the final human ship crossed the border into Earth, Space Admiral Harper updated the operation status to complete. Humanity had quietly removed itself from a system that never valued their contributions. Now they would discover what they could accomplish when they stopped trying to impress aliens who would never see them as equals. 1 year had passed since the humans left, and Chancellor Vexitar stood in his private office staring at reports that made no sense. The quarterly economic summaries showed gaps where profitable operations used to be. Trade routes that had generated billions of credits annually were now listed as inactive. Mining operations that had supplied rare materials to half the galaxy had simply stopped producing. His aide Colset entered the office carrying more disturbing news. The young Zephyrian had been tracking the economic disruptions across Council space, and the numbers kept getting worse. Chancellor, the dilithium shipments from Sector 7 have stopped completely, Colset reported. The mining facilities appear to be abandoned. Vextar looked up from his desk where star charts showed red markers indicating failed operations across dozens of systems. Send a survey team to investigate, he ordered. Some species must be willing to take over the abandoned human facilities. But the survey team sent back reports that confused Council economists even more. The human mining operations had not just been abandoned. They had been systematically destroyed. Tunnels collapsed, equipment removed, processing facilities demolished so thoroughly that rebuilding would cost more than starting fresh operations on untouched worlds. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, Factory Supervisor Zeklos faced a crisis that threatened to shut down manufacturing across 3 sectors. The precision assembly lines that humans had operated were sitting silent and dark. When Krathari engineers tried to restart production, they discovered that critical components had been removed from every machine. Zeklos stood in the main factory hall where dozens of assembly units stretched toward the ceiling. Each unit could produce starship components with tolerances measured in nanometers. But without the missing control modules, the entire facility was worthless scrap metal. How did such a primitive species build systems that we cannot understand? He asked his chief engineer. The engineer Morketh had spent weeks studying the human-designed equipment. Sir, the manufacturing principles are unlike anything in our technical databases, he reported. The humans appear to have developed completely different approaches to precision engineering. The problems extended far beyond manufacturing. Dr. Vichtar, who served as the Council's chief scientific advisor, was discovering that human contributions to galactic civilization had been far more extensive than anyone realized. Every sector where humans had operated was reporting system failures and technological breakdowns that Council experts could not fix. The Silurian High Command contacted Dr. Vitar about their failing sensor networks. Admiral Mordak explained that their early warning systems for asteroid threats and stellar phenomena were going dark, one by one. The quantum relay stations require maintenance procedures that only human technicians understood, he reported. Our engineers cannot replicate their methods. Dr. Vitar reviewed the technical documentation that humans had filed during their years in Council space. The reports were written in standard galactic languages and followed proper scientific formats. But when Council technicians tried to use the procedures, they found critical information missing. The humans had described what they did, but not how they did it. They claimed their maintenance was based on improvisation and intuitive adjustments, Dr. Vichtar told Admiral Mordak during an emergency conference. Our analysis suggests their technology operates on principles we do not recognize. The revelation prompted Dr. Vichtar to conduct a comprehensive review of human scientific contributions. Her research team spent months analyzing data that had been dismissed as primitive when humans first submitted it. What they found contradicted everything the Council believed about Earth's technological development. Human water purification systems were 3 times more efficient than the best Council technology. Their power generation methods produced no waste products and required minimal maintenance. Their medical treatments had reduced disease mortality rates across multiple species while using resources that Council physicians considered inadequate. Dr. Vitar presented her findings to an emergency session of the Council Scientific Board. The assembled experts from 43 different species listened in uncomfortable silence as she described human innovations that surpassed their own achievements. "How did our evaluation protocols fail to recognize these advances?" asked Dr. Nimtar from the Arcturian Research Institute. Her chief analyst had been investigating that exact question. "Sir, our evaluation systems were designed to assess technologies that followed established development patterns," the young researcher explained. "Human innovations appear to have developed along completely different technological pathways that our analysis protocols could not recognize. The economic impact was becoming impossible to ignore." Trade Administrator Fellmore reported that shipping costs had increased by 60% in sectors where humans used to operate. Supply chains that had functioned smoothly for decades were breaking down as alien species struggled to match human efficiency levels. The medical crisis was even worse. Dr. Silken, who ran the Council's largest medical facility, reported that patient mortality rates were climbing steadily. The treatment protocols developed by human researchers were keeping thousands of patients alive, she explained to the Emergency Medical Board. "Without access to their techniques, we are returning to older methods with much lower success rates." The most disturbing discovery came when analysts reviewed the crime and stability statistics from former human territories. Regions that humans had administered showed dramatic increases in civil unrest and criminal activity after their departure. The Council had always assumed that human law enforcement was adequate but unremarkable. The data revealed that human-controlled areas had the lowest crime rates in galactic civilization. Ambassador Telvar from the Velturian Trade Confederation brought the economic reports that finally forced the Council to acknowledge the scope of their crisis. "The sectors where humans operated generated 40% of our total trade revenue," he reported. "Without their commercial networks, our entire economic structure is becoming unstable." Chancellor Vextar found himself in the unprecedented position of admitting that the Council had made a serious error. During a closed session with senior delegates, he reviewed the evidence that Dr. Vitar had compiled. The humans had not been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been essential support systems that kept the entire structure functioning. "We assumed they needed our guidance," Vexitar told the assembled leaders. "The data suggests they were quietly solving problems that we did not even recognize existed." The realization led to increasingly desperate attempts to contact Earth and negotiate humanity's return. The first messages were formal diplomatic communications offering minor concessions if humans would resume their participation in Council affairs. When those messages received no response, the offers became more generous. The Council authorized trade agreements that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. They offered humans access to restricted technologies and territorial rights in previously forbidden sectors. They even suggested that Earth could be granted senior species status if they returned to help stabilize the failing systems across Council space. But the quantum communication arrays that could have carried these messages to Earth were the same systems that required human maintenance. The Council's desperate offers were being transmitted through hyperspace radio that would take months to reach human space. By the time their messages arrived, the damage to galactic civilization might be irreversible. Dr. Vishtar worked with communication specialists to send increasingly urgent transmissions toward Earth using every available method. The messages carried offers of full partnership and equal status in Council decision-making. They promised humans complete autonomy in their territorial claims and unlimited access to galactic scientific databases. The messages also carried a request that the Council leadership was reluctant to make, but could no longer avoid. They needed human help to prevent the collapse of systems that billions of beings depended on for survival. The species that had dismissed humanity as too primitive to merit serious consideration was now begging for the return of the people they had driven away. But as weeks passed without any response from human space, a disturbing possibility began to emerge. The Council had spent so many years treating humans as subordinates that they had never considered what would happen if Earth simply chose not to come back. The messages offering unprecedented concessions assumed that humans would be grateful for the chance to rejoin galactic civilization on better terms. None of the Council leaders had seriously considered that humanity might have found something better than anything the galaxy could offer. While the Council struggled with failing systems and economic collapse, Earth had become something that the galaxy had never seen before. The resources and knowledge that humans had quietly gathered during their years in Council space were now being used to build a civilization that operated on completely different principles than anything the aliens understood. Dr. Rachel Kim stood in the central laboratory of the Consolidated Research Initiative and watched as her teams worked on projects that would have been impossible under Council oversight. The quantum computing arrays that humans had developed in secret during their galactic years now powered simulations that could model the behavior of entire star systems. Banks of processors hummed with calculations that pushed the boundaries of known. Science President Alex Morgan toured the facility. During his monthly inspection of Earth's most ambitious projects, Dr. Kim showed him through laboratories where breakthrough discoveries happened every week, instead of every decade. "We are not just catching up to galactic standards," she explained, as they walked past chambers where exotic matter was being manipulated in ways that violated Council safety protocols. "We are preparing to surpass everything the galaxy thought was possible." The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Engineer Tony Valdez had been working on improvements to faster-than-light drive systems when he discovered that human neural patterns could interface directly with quantum navigation computers. The discovery happened by accident. When a power surge during testing connected his brain activity to the ship's navigation, Array Valdez spent weeks in medical observation, while scientists studied what had happened to him during the connection. Dr. Susan Martinez, who led the neural interface research team, found that human consciousness could process quantum navigation data in ways that no artificial computer could match. The alien species developed their faster-than-light technology using pure computational methods, she explained to the research committee. Humans can think in quantum states. Within months, human ships were achieving jump speeds that made Council vessels look like they were moving through thick liquid. The new navigation systems allowed instantaneous course corrections during faster-than-light travel and permitted jumps across distances that would take alien ships weeks to cross. Human explorers began reaching star systems that the Council had never seen. Admiral Patricia Chen commanded the Earth Defense Fleet from her flagship New Terra. The ships under her command bore no resemblance to Council designs with their massive hulls and external weapon arrays. Human vessels flowed through space like living creatures with hulls that shifted shape according to flight conditions and weapons, that were integrated seamlessly into their organic curves. Commander Steve Walsh served as Admiral Chen's tactical officer and had helped design the new ship systems. "The aliens built their ships like flying cities," he explained to visiting scientists. "We built ours like predatory animals that hunt in the void between stars." The philosophical differences between human and Council approaches extended far beyond engineering. While alien species maintained rigid hierarchies and territorial boundaries, humans developed flexible networks of cooperation that could span multiple star systems instantly. Colony Administrator Linda Foster coordinated settlements on 15 different worlds from her office on New Terra using communication systems that operated faster than Council emergency networks. The most remarkable achievement was in terraforming technology. Dr. Greg Thompson led teams that could transform barren worlds into garden paradises in less time than it took Council experts to complete their initial surveys. The techniques combined alien botanical knowledge with human agricultural innovation to create ecosystems that were more stable and productive than anything found in nature. Thompson stood on the observation deck of his terraforming ship watching as his latest project took shape on the planet below. Atmospheric processors that looked more like giant flowers than industrial equipment were converting the toxic air into breathable atmosphere, while seeding clouds drifted across continents where engineered forests grew at accelerated rates. The Council spent Centuries arguing about proper environmental impact procedures, Thompson told his team as they watched their world transform. We asked ourselves what would make a planet feel like home and then built systems that could create it. But humanity's greatest success was not technological. Ambassador Claire Martinez had established contact with dozens of species that the Council had dismissed as too primitive for galactic civilization. These species proved to be valuable allies with unique perspectives and capabilities that complemented human innovations. The Keth Mori were aquatic beings whose understanding of fluid dynamics revolutionized human ship design. Their knowledge of pressure differentials and flow patterns allowed human engineers to create vessels that moved through space with unprecedented efficiency. The crystalline Veltani had been considered non-sentient by Council standards, but their mathematical concepts unlocked new forms of energy manipulation that powered human cities. Martinez worked from a diplomatic station that orbited between 3 different star systems. Her facility hosted representatives from over 30 species that had joined what was becoming known as the Human Alliance. The Council made the same mistake with them that they made with us, she reported to Earth during her weekly briefings. They assumed that different meant inferior. Trade agreements between alliance species were based on mutual benefit rather than hierarchical control. Research partnerships flourished when all participants contributed as equals instead of junior partners seeking approval from senior species. The alliance grew rapidly as word spread about human treatment of their new allies. On the frontier world of New Geneva Colony Administrator Jack Peterson supervised the construction of cities that incorporated architectural principles from a dozen different species. Keith Mori water gardens flowed through Veltani crystal spires, while human agricultural domes provided food for species with completely different dietary requirements. Peterson received regular reports about Council ships detected at the edge of human space. The alien vessels maintained careful distances, but their sensor sweeps suggested they were trying to gather intelligence about human activities. They are watching us, Peterson reported to Earth Command, but they seem afraid to make direct contact. The intercepted Council communications revealed growing panic among galactic leadership. Their messages showed increasingly desperate attempts to understand what humans were building in their isolated space. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures that suggested technological capabilities far beyond anything in Council databases. President Morgan reviewed the latest intelligence reports with his cabinet in the secure briefing room beneath the Capitol. The Council was offering concessions that would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier. Full senior species status, unlimited territorial expansion rights, complete access to restricted technologies. All they wanted in return was for humans to come back and help repair their failing civilization. Secretary of State Janet Phillips presented the analysis of Council communications. Their latest message offers us complete autonomy within Council space, she reported. They are willing to grant humans authority over any systems we choose to claim. The cabinet room fell silent as everyone considered the irony. The same aliens who had treated humans like annoying children were now offering them leadership positions in galactic government. But the offers were based on the assumption that humans still wanted to be part of the Council system. Morgan looked out the window at Earth orbit where human ships moved between construction platforms that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. The vessels represented not just technological advancement, but complete independence from alien approval or oversight. "What is your recommendation, Mr. President?" asked Defense Secretary Phillips. Morgan considered the Council's desperate messages and the civilization that humans were building without alien interference. The alliance was growing stronger every month as new species joined their confederation of equals. Human space was expanding faster than Council territory had grown in centuries. The technology being developed in human laboratories was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. "We politely decline," Morgan said finally. "We are building something better out here." 3 years after humanity's departure, the galactic balance of power had changed in ways that the Council could never have imagined. Chancellor Vextar stood before an emergency session of the full Council Assembly, knowing that the words he was about to speak would mark the end of an era that had lasted for thousands of years. The Great Chamber was only half full. 17 member species had formally withdrawn from the Council in the past 6 months after their requests for emergency aid had been denied. The remaining delegates sat in clusters according to their political Alliances, while empty sections, marked the absence of civilizations that had lost faith in galactic leadership. The situation has become critical, Vexitar announced to the assembled representatives. His voice carried through translation systems to species that had once considered council membership the highest achievement possible. 43 core systems have requested immediate assistance for failing infrastructure. Our outer territories report complete breakdown of communication networks. Trade volumes have fallen to 30% of previous levels. In the observer gallery, newly arrived delegations watched the proceedings with barely concealed interest. These were species that had been denied council membership for centuries, but had recently received invitations to join something called the Human Alliance. The Kethmori representative, Ambassador Silthara, rose from her specially designed water tank to address the council. The Kethmori Collective formally withdraws its application for council membership, she announced through her liquid speech translator. We have accepted more favorable terms from the Human Alliance where our contributions are valued rather than dismissed. The murmur of shocked voices filled the chamber as other observer species began making similar announcements. The crystalline Veltani delegate transmitted a harmonic pattern that translated as complete rejection of council authority. The insectoid Zekmar Confederation declared their intention to seek alliance membership rather than continue waiting for council recognition. Dr. Vitar presented her final analysis to the council leadership during a closed session that followed the disastrous public meeting. The data she had compiled painted a picture of systematic collapse that extended far beyond simple economic problems. Every major crisis we face can be traced directly to the loss of human expertise, she reported to the assembled leaders. The technological failures were spreading faster than council engineers could address them. Manufacturing systems designed by humans were breaking down without proper maintenance. Communication networks that had operated reliably for decades were going dark as quantum relay stations failed. Medical facilities were returning to older treatment methods with dramatically higher mortality rates. But the problems extended beyond technology. Human administrators had quietly resolved conflicts between species and maintained diplomatic balances that kept the galaxy stable. Without their moderating influence, old territorial disputes were escalating into armed conflicts, while trade disagreements turned into economic warfare between former allies. The breaking point came when Silurian intelligence reported massive energy signatures from human space that suggested technological capabilities far beyond anything in council databases. Long-range sensors operating at maximum range had detected structures that dwarfed the great orbital cities of the core worlds. Admiral Mordak reviewed the intelligence data with growing alarm. The energy readings indicated that humans had achieved full stellar engineering capabilities and were using them to construct installations that defied understanding. They are not just building space stations, he reported to the Emergency Military Committee. They appear to be rearranging entire solar systems. The truth was even more remarkable than the Admiral suspected. Humanity had indeed mastered stellar engineering, but they were using their capabilities to create something unprecedented in galactic history. Artificial worlds designed specifically for the species that joined their alliance were taking shape in systems that humans had claimed beyond the council frontier. The Kethmori swam through vast orbital seas that maintained perfect ecological balance while providing living space for billions of their people. The Veltani inhabited crystal structures that resonated with cosmic harmonics and amplified their mathematical consciousness. Species that the Council had ignored for millennia were thriving in environments designed to enhance their unique capabilities. President Morgan received the latest intelligence reports about Council activities while reviewing plans for Alliance expansion into 3 new star systems. The alien government had mobilized their remaining fleets and appeared to be preparing for military action if diplomatic solutions failed. Admiral Chen's analysis suggested that the Council was considering the use of force to compel humanity's return to galactic civilization. They have 5,000 ships, Admiral Chen reported during the daily security briefing. Our latest count shows we have 12,000 vessels with superior technology and better training. If they want a military solution, they will discover how much human capabilities have advanced. But Morgan hoped that confrontation could be avoided. The alliance had grown to include over 60 species in just 3 years and was expanding faster than the Council had grown in centuries. Trade between alliance worlds generated more wealth than the core galactic markets, while research partnerships were producing technological breakthroughs at unprecedented rates. The final diplomatic approach came when Chancellor Vextar himself led a council delegation to the border of human space. His flagship approached slowly with all weapons powered down and communication channels broadcasting peaceful intentions. The contrast between his vessel and the human ships that met him demonstrated how far Earth technology had advanced. Captain Ben Rodriguez commanded the Alliance vessel Harmony that intercepted the Council delegation at the border. The same officer who had overseen evacuations during Protocol 7 now served as humanity's first contact with their former overlords. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Alliance ship Harmony," he transmitted to the alien vessel. "Chancellor, Vextar, you are welcome to visit Alliance territory as our guest." The journey through human space revealed wonders that challenged everything Vextar thought he knew about galactic civilization. Cities that flowed between planets like rivers of light. Trade stations where dozens of species worked together as equals rather than in rigid hierarchies. Manufacturing complexes that operated with efficiency levels that made Council industry look primitive. When Vextar finally met with President Morgan on the diplomatic station, New Geneva, the conversation was polite but firm. The Alliance had moved beyond the need for Council approval or oversight. They had created a new model of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. "The Council is welcome to observe and learn from our methods," Morgan explained as they toured the station where representatives from across Alliance space conducted business in an atmosphere of mutual respect. "But we will not be returning to the old system. We have discovered something better." The meeting lasted for 3 days as Vextar tried every diplomatic approach to convince humanity to return. He offered complete autonomy within Council space. He promised humans authority over any systems they chose to claim. He even suggested that Earth could lead a reformed council that operated according to human principles. But each offer was politely declined with the same explanation. The Alliance had proven that galactic civilization could function better without the rigid hierarchies and territorial restrictions that had defined Council rule. Species that had been ignored or dismissed were now contributing to achievements that surpassed anything the galaxy had previously seen. As Vextar prepared to return to Council space with news of his failure, he realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The age of Council dominance was ending not through conquest or revolution, but through the simple demonstration that better alternatives were possible. Years later, historians would mark humanity's quiet departure from the Council as the moment when true galactic civilization began. The Council still existed, but as one voice among many in a galaxy where cooperation had replaced domination, and where every species, regardless of their differences, had the opportunity to contribute to something greater than themselves. The humans had walked away in silence while the Council thought they were untouchable. In doing so, they had touched the entire galaxy in ways the aliens were only beginning to understand.